Hello, this is Andy Miller with the Davidson Soil and Water Conservation District. Today I'm going to talk with you about a pair of contests that the Soil and Water Conservation District puts on each year for all the sixth graders in Davidson County. This year the topic happens to be We All Live in a Watershed, and the contests are an essay contest and a computer-generated slideshow contest. So let's take a few minutes to first learn about what the contest involve. The first contest that we'll talk about is our essay contest. And like I said a second ago, the title is We All Live in a Watershed.
I want to point out to you that there are some differences between an essay and a report. Most of you, I'm sure, have written reports over the years, and those are just a formal presentation of facts. An essay is a little different in that it includes your personal opinion. So we're looking for you to tell us what you think about and what you understand about we all live in a watershed, why that's important. Now, you probably want to do a little research so that you have some facts, but what we're looking for is your point of view on the importance of watersheds.
Now that we know the difference between an essay and a report, let's take a look at what the contest rules are for the essay. It's important when you start your essay that you begin by putting the title on there because your essay must display the title and it must be displayed as shown here. It has to be, We All Live in a Watershed. If you don't use that exact title, there will be points taken away from your entry. As you write your essay, remember that we're looking for somewhere between 300 to 500 words in length for your essay, and we want this to be your own work. Don't use something that you've seen on the internet or that you've read in a book or maybe you've seen in a magazine. We want you to do research, but we want you to put your own ideas. Remember, that's what an essay is all about. As far as paper size, you can use regular notebook paper or regular computer paper that's 8.5 by 11 inches in size. You can either type it or do it in your own handwriting. We do ask that if you do it in your own handwriting that you use ink, and the reason we ask that is because pencil tends to smudge and that makes it sometimes hard for our judges to read. So use ink, use a color that's easy to read. Same thing with if you're typing it. Be sure you use a font that's easy to read and a color that's easy to read. And then last but not least, be sure that you identify yourself on the back. We don't need to know your name, what school you go to, that you're in Davidson County, who your teacher is, that you're in the sixth grade. Your teacher will help you get that on your essay. But we need all those things because there are prizes for the contest, and we want to be sure that we can find you if you win one of those prizes.
Here's how we will score your essays. Content is worth 50 points. What that's all about is, what are you telling us about we all live in a watershed? Are your facts correct? Does your point of view make sense? Your writing style will be 20 points. And that's what we're looking for there is for you to make your essay interesting and make it something that someone would want to read. The next 20 points come from the organization. What we're looking for there is that your essay has a good introduction, there's a good body to your essay, and then finally there's a good conclusion. The last 10 points are for neatness. Neatness counts whether it's typed or handwritten. Good margins, good spacing, all of that counts to neatness. There are some infractions that we'll take points away for. If your essay is either less than 300 words or more than 500 words in length, that will be minus 5 points. If you put the wrong title, or if you simply don't put the title on there, that will be minus 5 points. And if you use the wrong size paper, that will be minus 2 points.
Now let's switch gears and talk about our other contest, the computer generated slideshow. And remember, the topics are the same for both of these contests. The topic for the slideshow contest is "We all live in a watershed." Here are the rules for the slideshow contest. Your slideshow should be no more than 15 slides that have content on them. Now you can have fewer than 15 slides, but no more than 15 slides making up the meat of your slideshow. And the correct order for your slides should be you start with your slideshow, and that can be up to 15 slides. Then you have a blank slide, and then the very last slide should identify you as a student. Again, your teachers will help you get the correct information there. And that information is important to us because if you are a winner, we want to be able to find you and get you the prizes that are associated with the contest. So just to sum that up, if you have 15 slides that in your show that have content, you should have a total of 17 slides. You'll have 15 slides of content, a blank slide, and then a slide with your identification on it. Slideshows are going to need to be created so that we can view them using a personal computer. We do ask that if you use Microsoft PowerPoint that the files be compatible with PowerPoint 2003. You can use audio or sound with your slideshow. You can use slide animation, but the use of video is prohibited. And if you include video in your slideshow, then your slideshow will be disqualified. If you do use sound and it's recorded, your slideshows are not to exceed a maximum of 5 minutes in length. And then we ask you to submit your slideshows electronically, and I'll give you an email address in a few minutes of where to submit those slides. Just like the essay, it's important that your slideshow is your own work. We want to see your original ideas. So we want you to be careful about copyright protection. It's real easy to violate with a slideshow, but a copyright basically protects someone else's work. So the work that you do needs to be your own creation, not something that you're copying from somewhere else. So, for example, you could use cartoon characters in a comic strip form if you wanted to for your slideshow. As long as you create those characters, and as long as the comic strip is something that you've created. If your classmates look at your show and they recognize the characters that you've used, you're probably violating a copyright, and that's going to cost you points. We want you to use your imagination and create your own artwork because your ideas are the best ideas, and those are going to be the ones that win these contests. So here's how we will score your slideshow. 50% of your score will be based on the message that you get across about we all live in a watershed. The next 30% will be for visual effectiveness. And what we're looking for there is that the words and the pictures all get across a message that is easy to understand and that makes good sense. The next 10% will be for what we call universal appeal. And what all we mean by that is, can anybody look at your slideshow and understand what you're talking about, enjoy watching it, and appreciate your slideshow? The thing that usually decides the winner from the other just rans is the originality, and that's worth 10%. Make sure your slideshow reflects your personality and it's different from everyone else's so that you are being shown, because originality is one of the key things that we're looking for, even though it's only 10%. Deductions from scoring for the slideshow content will be -5 points if you violate a copyright, -5 points if you exceed the maximum number of slides, -5 points if you exceed the maximum time limit, and as I told you earlier, if you use video in your slideshow will be disqualified. Here's how the contest procedures will go from this point. You'll prepare your essays or your computer-generated slideshows, and then your school will select no more than one entry per class from each contest to represent your school. For your essays, we'll come to your school on December the 5th to pick them up at the school office, and your slideshows must be submitted electronically by 5 p.m. on December the 5th to my email address. You see it there on the screen, andy.miller@davidsoncounty.nc.gov. We'll have a team of judges sit down and look at them that next week, and we'll announce the winners by December the 12th, and it will very likely be on December the 12th that we announce the winners. There are prizes for each contest. At each school, the first place school winner will receive a trophy. Those winners will be entered into the county contest, where the county winner will receive a plaque, which just denotes who you are, where you go to school, and what you are receiving the plaque for. Plus, you'll get a check for $25. Because of the efforts that your teachers put into that, to you being the winner, we also will give the teacher of each of the county winners a check for $25 as well. The winners at the county contest are entered into the area contest. The area has not announced what their prizes will be yet, but it'll probably be something in the neighborhood of $25 for first, $15 for second, and $10 for third place for the area contest. And that includes 11 other counties that are close by Davidson County. The winner from that area contest is entered into the state contest. At the state contest, there are two prizes. First prize is $200, and second prize is $100. We've had several winners from Davidson County, and we hope that you will be the next person to be a state winner from Davidson County.
So let's start at this point and we'll move forward learning about why watersheds are important. And we'll be focusing on that topic. We all live in a watershed, to help you understand first what watersheds are, second, why they're important, the impacts of something called impervious cover. Impervious cover is just a big word that means a surface that water cannot penetrate through. It could be like a roof, a road, a parking lot, things that water cannot soak through. Then we'll look at what you can do to help improve our watersheds and what we can do as a community to help protect our watersheds. So this young lady is asking, why should watersheds matter to me? Well, it's important for us to note that watersheds are important to all of us because we all live in a watershed. As we look at our watersheds, there are lots of different people that live there. Folks that are students like you might be, the teachers, the office workers, the fishermen and farmers and construction workers, our grandparents, and then all of us enjoy watersheds for some kind of outdoor recreation, whether we're bicyclists, canoeists, fisher persons, we ride horses, whatever. We all enjoy the good things that watersheds provide for us. Well, you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm still not sure what a watershed is. So let me see if I can help you understand that concept of a watershed. So what is a watershed? A watershed is the area of land that drains to a particular point along a stream. And if we add this drawing to kind of give you an idea of hills and valleys, this is going to compose our watershed. If we add the water to it, you can see maybe a little better how those hills and valleys might work. A watershed is the area that drains to a particular point. Okay, so let's draw a boundary around that watershed, which the white line does for us there. So that area inside of the white lines is all going to drain to the lake that shows up on the lower right-hand portion of your screen. The line just shows the point where if a raindrop falls on one side of the line, it drains to our lake. If it falls on the other side of the line, it's in a different watershed and flows somewhere else. So let's draw some arrows on there to show how that water would flow. As you look at those arrows, the arrows indicate that when a drop of water falls, where that drop of water would drain to. But it's important to note that all that water from the upper end all the way down to the lake on the lower side all drains to that one point, and that creates a watershed. And remember, we all live in a watershed. No matter where we live in the world, no matter who we are, where we live, and where we are at every moment is in a watershed. Might be very different, but every place on earth is within that watershed, within a watershed. Okay, so maybe now you understand what a watershed is and that you live in a watershed. But what are the kinds of things that can have an impact on your watershed, either for good or bad? Well, one of those things that have a big impact on watersheds is something called impervious cover. Let's take a look at what impervious cover is and the impacts that impervious cover can have on a watershed. So here's an aerial photograph of just a community that has impervious surfaces and pervious surfaces. So let's start by looking at what are the impervious surfaces that we can easily pick out here. Well, the first thing we notice here is we've got lots of roads here. The roads and the pavement that goes along with the road do not allow water to soak into the ground. So they are an impervious surface. Very similar to the roads are the parking lots in that area. Often they're paved either with concrete or asphalt that neither of them allow water to soak into the ground, so they're impervious surfaces. We can add buildings in there. Our buildings have roofs that are designed to keep water from soaking into our building, and they also keep that water from soaking into the ground, so they are impervious surfaces. We have sidewalks and walkways around our homes and around our businesses that are impervious surfaces. We have driveways that create impervious surfaces. So as we look at this picture, all those highlighted areas now show how much of this particular picture is covered by an impervious surface. So let's see how those impervious surfaces relate to how much water runs off. Because how much water runs off impacts our streams drastically. And what we want to compare here is a forest versus a parking lot. So you see the forest on the top left, the parking lot on the lower left. In a forest, the rain soaks into the ground and is either taken up by tree roots or sucks into the ground where it becomes groundwater. On a parking lot, when it falls on that impervious surface, it can't soak into the ground, so it becomes something called stormwater runoff. It's water that runs off when it rains. And if we compare the forested area to the parking lot or other impervious surface, we'll see that it has drastic impacts on the way that the water runs off. Impervious cover creates much more stormwater runoff than a forest will. Our bar graph here at the bottom of the page shows the first column is the rainfall. And this just is assuming that we have roughly 2 inches of rainfall. Well, when we get that 2 inches of rainfall on a parking lot, we're estimating that roughly 1.8 inches of that rainfall becomes stormwater runoff and leaves the site. If you look at the bar graph on the far right, in the forest, that runoff is much, much smaller, less than 2/10 of an inch. So you get most of that water soaking up into the ground where it can become groundwater and where it helps to clean that water that is falling. So the amount of impervious cover we have has a big impact on our streams. If we just look at the picture starting at the top left, you'll see a stream there that is in a watershed that has less than 5% impervious surfaces. A very nice looking stream with clean water, probably all kinds of different organisms live in there, but a good quality stream. If we move to the picture in the top center, you see a stream that is in an area where the watershed is roughly 8 to 10% impervious surfaces. And you can see that there's erosion going on the sides of the stream channel. The water is not as clean looking, and there's some damage to that stream. But not like it is if we go over to the one on the right on the top, where we have roughly 20% cover in the watershed that is impervious. I want to point out in that picture, you can see the culvert or the pipe that's sticking out over the stream on the right hand side there. And you can see that the stream bank is straight up and down. When that culvert was installed, the bottom of the pipe was on the stream bottom. That stream has eroded down and has eroded to the edges over the years to create a stream that is not very healthy. If we move on down to the picture on the bottom on the right, we see a stream that exists in a watershed that has about 30% of impervious surfaces covering the watershed. And you can see that the stream is damaged, the stream banks are caving in, trees are falling into the creek. There are other pollutants in that water there, so problems. And if we continue on to the one on the bottom left, you see a stream that is really no longer a natural stream. It's more or less a concrete lined ditch. That's just a way to pass water from one point to another. So increasing the impervious cover in the watershed increases the damages and the impacts to our streams. So we can see that there really is a relationship between how our streams look and how healthy they are versus the impervious cover that exists in the watershed. But let's take a little closer look to see exactly how that impervious cover affects our stream. Impervious cover can influence a lot of different things. Number one, it can affect dry and wet weather stream flows. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. It also impacts the size and the shape of the stream channel. It will it will affect the quality of the water in our stream. And that quality of water, along with all the other things, also impacts our plant and animal habitat. So impervious cover greatly influences the quality of our streams. So let's take a closer look. Impervious cover has a huge influence on both dry and wet weather. Let's look first at dry weather flow in the stream. You may have wondered in the past how streams continue to flow in the summertime here when the weather has been dry for weeks or maybe even months. Well, the answer to that question is because there is a vast amount of water stored in the soil. We call that groundwater. And our streams depend on that groundwater to continue to flow during dry periods. If we live in a watershed where there are many, many acres of impervious surfaces, those impervious surfaces do not allow water to soak into the ground where it can become groundwater. If it can't become groundwater, it can't nourish the stream, keep the stream flowing during dry weather. So we see much, much lower flows in our stream during dry weather in watersheds that have high percentages of impervious surfaces. Impervious cover changes the wet weather stream flows. When it rains on impervious surfaces, you get a large amount of water running off. And we can kind of trace this a little bit here to our stream. The water that falls on our roofs might run off through a gutter, down a downspout, onto a paved parking lot, out into the street that you see there in the center. It enters the storm drain system there, where it goes to a pipe that's directed straight to the stream. Many people have the wrong impression that the storm drain system goes to a treatment plant, but that's not the case. Anything that goes down that storm drain goes directly into our creek, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. That impervious cover greatly increases the chance of more frequent flooding and higher flood levels. You might have noticed over the last year more frequent flooding and bigger flooding in our area. Part of that has been partially due to increased rainfall in the last year or two, but one of the key factors is being that as Davidson County continues to grow, we get more and more impervious surfaces that lead to larger amounts of storm water reaching our streams much more quickly, and that causes us damage. So let's look a little further in that as to how it affects the stream shape and size. When you get large volumes of storm water runoff from those impervious areas, it begins to damage the banks of our stream channel. Streams in a natural, undamaged condition will have gently sloping banks on either side. That's not what exists in the stream that you see in the picture there. Those stream banks are eroding. That puts sediment in the water. You might not know what sediment is, but sediment is soil particles that end up in the water. And that just so happens to be the largest pollutant that we have in the water by volume in the state of North Carolina. So we're damaging the stream channel, creating pollution by sediment. That sediment sometimes covers up the bottom of the stream, making the stream more shallow. It also covers up the habitat for some of those creatures that live on the bottom of the stream. As the streams get shallow, as the banks erode, because of the rapid flow and larger flow of water, quite often the stream channel becomes much more straighter. Nature intends for streams to meander, to weave back and forth. That's the way they control the flow and the energy of the water in the stream. So when we create impervious areas, we create even more damage to those streams because we straighten them out. There's also pollutants that come from these impervious surfaces. You can see construction there on the top left and the soil particles that will wash off the roadway into our waterways. Pay attention when you go to the gas station with your parents the next time. You might see gasoline, oil, antifreeze all spilled out, and when it rains there, guess what? That all washes right into our streams. Take a look when you're in the parking lot next time. You'll probably see trash scattered about the parking lot. When it rains, that water washes that trash directly into our streams where they become significant pollutants. There are various kinds of pollutants that can be very harmful in that stormwater runoff. One of those things is bacteria. Now, the glass that this fellow's holding up here is kind of cloudy looking, but quite often when bacteria is the pollutant, the water still looks clean, but it could sure make you sick. We often see fish kills that are caused by things like nutrient pollution, pesticides, oil and grease. Nutrients are excess fertilizers that end up in our water. When you fertilize the yard, when you fertilize your garden, if you're putting too much out, you're probably damaging our streams. Muddy water. I mentioned this a slide or two ago. The number one pollutant in our water in the state of North Carolina is something called sediment. When you see muddy water, you're seeing sediment in the water. So muddy water equals polluted water. And then last, there can be heavy metals in our water like zinc, copper, and lead. A good example here in Davidson County is mercury. We used to have a battery factory here in Davidson County that used mercury to make the batteries. Well, they improperly disposed of some of that mercury that ended up getting into High Rock Lake. So for many years at High Rock Lake, they used to have signs like this health advisory you see that would say that you should not eat more than a certain amount of fish that were caught in High Rock Lake every week to stay safe. Impervious service changes the habitat quality for all those creatures that live in our streams. You can think about all those things from fish and turtles and crawdads, on and on and on. When we have that sediment deposited in our streams, it covers up places where those creatures that live on the bottom, that start the food chain, live. When we have the stream channel being straightened and everything being flushed out, we lose the variety of habitat or the diversity of habitat that is so important to supporting a wide variety of animals. And very frequently, when we get more impervious cover, we lose what we call a stream buffer. That's just a place where plants grow on either side of the stream. As those buffers get more and more narrow, we get more damage to the habitat for the creatures that live in the stream. So, what does all that mean for the future of the stream? Well, it's not doom and gloom. If we are careful, we can improve all our streams or protect those that are already in good shape. So let's start by looking at a stream that's already in good shape. We'd call this a sensitive stream. We find these streams in watersheds where the impervious cover is less than 10%. You can see that's a good looking stream with good clean water. So if we were being a stream doctor, we'd say the diagnosis is this is a healthy stream with good water quality and it can support a lot of different aquatic life. Our prescription for taking care of it would be to protect that stream. We may even want to do things that would conserve or protect it from development around the stream to help that stream stay healthy. If we looked at a stream that has more impervious cover, this one happens to have around 10 to 25% impervious cover, we'd call that an impacted stream. And you can see the differences here where there's stream bank erosion. You can see the sediments in the stream channel. So our diagnosis there would be that it's not great shape, but we have lots of streams in Davidson County that look like this. Now they can still support a lot of different aquatic organisms, but they're going to need some help to be able to do that. So our prescription is that we need to protect these areas, but we also probably need to use something called best management practices to help increase the infiltration in the watershed and increase the filtration to keep the pollutants out of the stream to keep it healthy for the animals that live there. If we go on to a stream that has further impacts like this severely damaged stream here, the picture comes from a watershed where about 50 or 60% of the watershed has impervious cover, our diagnosis doesn't look nearly as good. We see highly eroded channels, poor water quality, not a lot of aquatic organisms living there, and very limited uses. Probably not very good for fishing, not good for swimming, so limited uses. So what do we do here? What's our diet prescription? Is to go in and carefully treat and restore those areas, being good stewards to help improve the water quality and the habitat. Now, the most seriously damaged streams, some of them may have reached a point where there's not much we can do for them. A stream like this that is being converted to a concrete lined channel, our diagnosis is pretty poor. We can diagnose that it's highly modified, doesn't look much like a natural channel, doesn't provide much habitat, and it's probably not going to support human uses like fishing. So what can we do there? Well, the best thing that we can do is to try to prevent pollution of that water so that the water that flows through this stream will be as clean as possible when it gets down to a more natural stream channel, so that we have as good a water quality as we can hope for. So we've seen that impervious cover impacts watersheds in a lot of different ways. How can we work together to protect our watersheds? Let's take a look at that through a process of addressing watershed damage as a community. The group that helped put this together, the Center for Watershed Protection, uses 8 different tools to address watershed protection. And the first tool is to use watershed planning. And all that is basically looking at what you have in your watershed, what's good, what's bad, where the good is, where the bad is, and then making a plan for that. This may be the most important tool when it comes to protecting a watershed, is evaluating what you have so that you can make plans to improve. Because when we're looking at our watersheds and trying to address it, it's much like putting together a puzzle. We've got all these different uses. People need a place to live, they need a place to shop, they need a place to work, and they need a place for recreation. So how do we make all those pieces fit together in the best way for our watershed so that we continue to have good, healthy watersheds and good water quality? That evaluation leads to developing watershed plans that look at the conditions, what can be done, what can't be done, and then a plan for how to address the issues that exist in our watershed. Those plans usually end up with maps that look like this. The black line indicates our watershed. The blue lines are the streams and the lakes within that watershed. The green area represents buffers that exist. The hatched green areas are where we're going to add buffers. So it shows things that places where we need to take action. That's what the plan is all about. Creating a place that is going to be good for our stream as it outflows. The second tool in that toolbox is conserving certain areas. We want to keep the most important and most vulnerable parts of the watershed protected. It can be a variety of different conservation areas. That could be things like wetlands that we see there as the critical habitats. It could be the areas along our streams and rivers. We call those aquatic corridors. It might be forest land and farmland. It might be areas where there are pollution hazards. And it might even be something man-made, a cultural area, something like maybe Old Salem in Winston-Salem. That's important to our history to protect those areas. The third tool is to look at where we might use an aquatic buffer. Those are just places where you're changing from dry land to the waterway. The benefits of those buffers include things like flood control, increased property values, creating habitat for wildlife, providing protection for wetlands that are important for wildlife, and reducing pollutants. The buffers here are very different. Although this is a nice looking home on the top picture, that lawn between the house and the water body doesn't provide much protection. Where, on the other hand, the home in the bottom picture, the grown-up area along the water serves as a great filter, provides a lot of habitat for wildlife, and really, really helps to protect our water. On the farm, there's lots of different things we can do. The farmer in the top left picture is not doing such a great job because he's working the land right up to the water course. A much better way to treat that is seen below, where you see the grasses and the shrubs growing up along the stream. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, that shows an excellent stream. Remember we talked about meanders earlier? You can see the stream weaving back and forth, surrounded by trees and shrubs and grasses that can filter out any of the pollutants that might come from the farmland. Tool number 4 is to utilize better site designs. That means reducing the amount of impervious cover however we can. That leads to better residential and commercial development. In a conventional development, we might see homes scattered out evenly, all the trees removed. And in newer development designs like cluster subdivisions, the houses are closer together, but there are areas of trees and shrubs left to protect the watershed. In those areas, we need to manage that rooftop runoff. While it's not too good to just let the water run off down the downspout across the parking lot into the stream, it's much better to create areas where we can encourage the water to soak into the ground, or maybe where we even collect the water in something like a rain barrel to capture that water where we can use it later. That prevents runoff and gives us water for various other uses. The 5th tool is to control erosion and sediment. That's a key during the construction process for protecting our streams. There are various best management practices that we can use to do that. Things like silt fences that you see on the top left, hydro seeding, which is a mixture of seed and a tacky material that holds the soil in place until the grasses can grow through it. We might use things like the rock check dams you see on the left bottom, or sediment basins on the right bottom that are designed to capture the water from a construction site, allow the sediment to filter out, and then allow clean water to go downstream. Tool number 8 is to manage that stormwater, the water that runs off. And we can do that by using best management practices like ponds, wetlands, grassed channels, ways to increase infiltration, and ways to filter the water. Here are a couple examples of those stormwater best management practices. Those might be things like ponds that you see on the top left, or wetlands like you see on the top right. Wetlands are just shallow areas covered by water that grow a diversity of plants, and they're really good at controlling storm water. You might utilize open grass channels like you see on the bottom left, or infiltration areas. On the right bottom, the area that looks light colored is filled with gravel. It was just a big pit that was dug to capture the water that runs off a parking lot, and then the gravel allows that water to soak into the soil slowly and prevent runoff. Tool number 7 is to look at other pollution sources. Those can be things like septic systems, which is how we dispose of our wastewater from our houses here in Davidson County, sanitary sewer systems, industrial discharges, and confined animal feeding lots. And you'll see some examples of those here. Improperly managed animal waste can be a pollutant. Luckily, here in Davidson County, our farmers are doing a great job of trying to keep our water clean from animal waste. We've done a good job of addressing discharges from pipes like you see on the top right. The health department has worked hard to improve the conditions of septic systems throughout the county. and has also worked to prevent those those sanitary sewers which dispose of human waste from overflowing during heavy storms. Tool number 8 is where you get involved, and that's watershed stewardship. Speaking up about the importance of the watershed, maintaining it by doing things like picking up trash or monitoring the quality of the stream, or maybe even going in and helping to restore a stream or some portion of a watershed. But the real key thing is education here, knowing what to do and what not to do. That's the key to being a good steward of the water. Now, you might be saying to yourself, I don't run a factory, I don't litter, I don't control development, I'm only one person. So, what can I do to make a difference? Well, I'm going to give you a list of 10 things that you can do to help make a difference. On my top 10 list, number 1 is to use only water for watering outside when and where it's really needed. Particularly in our lawns, we waste a lot of water, and that becomes a double problem because we frequently over-fertilize and overuse pesticides in our lawns. So using only the amount of pesticides and fertilizers we need, only watering when and where it's needed, are first good steps. The third step is to be smart when we plant around our homes and to use native vegetation. Those are plants that are adapted to our local conditions, that require less fertilizer, less pesticides, and less watering. Number 4 on our list is to manage that rooftop runoff. Create ways to either collect it or to cause it to soak into the ground. Number 5 is to properly dispose of our pet waste. In Davidson County, that proper disposal means you pick up after Rover and you throw it in the trash. Number 6 is to be smart with where you wash your car. Our best choice is to use car washes where they recycle the water. But if you're washing at home, wash it on the lawn so that the water can soak back into the ground where it can be cleaned up, and that water can also serve to water your lawn. Number 7 is to properly maintain vehicles. Next time you're out in a parking lot, take a look. I bet you'll find spots where oil, gasoline, antifreeze, or other chemicals have leaked out of those vehicles onto the ground. We can prevent that. Number 8 is to recycle and properly dispose of household chemicals. Too many folks seem to think that disposing of household chemicals means to just dump them down the drain. That's not the best way to do it. Our landfill has a day every month where they collect those household chemicals and dispose of them properly. Number 9 is to properly maintain your septic system. A lot of folks don't know that you really need to have your septic system pumped out every 3 to 5 years to keep it functioning properly and to keep it from polluting the environment around it.
And number 10 on our list, and maybe the most important thing on the list, is for you to get involved in your watershed. Get out and learn about your watershed and all the neat things that are happening in there and all the neat things that are out there, like wetlands and creeks and ponds and lakes. Learn about your watershed. Find out about what's planned for your watershed. Is there a new school coming close by? Is there a new development coming close by? Or is the county doing something to help protect the environment for your watershed? And then be involved with things that are going on in your watershed. You might take part in helping to clean up a part of your watershed. You might take part in helping develop a new plan for your watershed. But we want you to get involved. That's what this whole contest is about, is to get you out, get you involved with what's going on in your watershed, and hopefully to make your watershed a better place because you are involved. So with that said, good luck as you get ready to do your essays and your computer-generated slideshows. We look forward to seeing your entries. We wish you a good rest of your school year. And remember, We all live in a watershed.